name is Laurie Hassall, and I'm a Senior Consultant in Geology with the global mining advisory company Snowden Optiro. So this podcast is all about geometallurgical data and modelling. The first question, what happens to geometallurgical data that has been produced following test work, and how is it used? So the objective is to find relationships between geology and metallurgical performance. Key indicators can be grades, mineralogy, geology codes, and that could be anything from rock type to weathering, alteration, hardness. And these indicators can be compared with metallurgical performance, which can be anything from recoveries to product grades. If a relationship between process performance and geological data is identified, then that is the ideal situation, i.e., a direct relationship. Often, however, it's not quite as clear, and it may be that proxies or indicators are established that are better able to predict process or met performance. For example, it's not always possible to collect data or model mineralogical variants within a deposit. However, geochemical or logging data can be used as a proxy for mineralogy or mineralogical species. This data can then be used to predict and model mineralogy within the deposit using this proxy. And this might be the best solution. Another question, how does one model geological variability in order to predict met performance? Well, this depends on what is responsible for causing met variability or poor performance. Often geological or geometallurgical 3D domaining is the best way to do this. By partitioning the deposit into geomet domains, an appreciation of processing performance across the resource can be achieved. This can be done using traditional 3D geology modeling techniques. However, this relies on data density. Often further drilling is required to gather the required logging, mineralogical or geochemical data that's required for modeling the domains. Also, returning to historical drill core or samples may be required, and relogging or resampling may play an important role. Once domains are established, this can be coded into the resource or grade control block models, and mine schedules can report or even use the output to improve the mine plan by optimizing on processing performance. Domains within the block model can use process performance metrics. Usually this is an average of across the domain, for example, average recovery. This output can then be used for mine planning. So next question, can processing performance metrics be estimated into the block model rather than just using an average per domain? Well, yes, but this depends on the data and the test work used to collect the data. Often bench scale test work is sufficient to provide an appreciation of both processing performance, but it's not sufficiently accurate to predict processing performance due to differences in equipment scale at the lab. And often this is best done in operations, whereby processing predictions can be reconciled against mill actuals. It's important to use geomet data in context. Predictions can only be tested by real-world data or more test work and building up to pilot scale. Predictions, whether they are estimates or regression predictions, should be performed in a domain if found to control and treat as you would a typical grade estimation. If using regression formulae, then these can be built into the block model macros, and it's important to note that formulae need to be based on input data that already exists in the block model and is in itself of sufficient confidence. Each block model cell will calculate its own met performance indicator. Whether directly estimating process metrics into a block model or by using regression formulae from a geological indicator, the outputs can be very powerful. By outputting processing recoveries, for example, cutoff grades and block values can be dynamically calculated for every cell in the model. This improves the resolution of the model and allows for processing and other economic parameters to influence ore waste determination, as well as grade control and blends to the mill. So final question, how to assess reliability in met predictions? Well, ultimately by further work, and this might include pilot scale test work or when in full scale production, reconciliation between the mine and mill. Now, a rough rule of thumb for sufficiency in sample coverage is roughly one sample per 1 million tons and per domain. However, it depends entirely on how variable the deposit is. Okay, so thank you for listening to this podcast. If you'd like to listen to more of our Fresh Thinking by Snowden Optiro podcasts, you can find them for free on our website, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Libsyn, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and most other podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this podcast on geomet modelling, please subscribe so we can keep you up to date with our technical podcasts.